lizard, 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 lizard. Lizard.
Hi, Hoppers is the latest Pixar original film that finally has good marketing. And it has beavers. And I'm someone who loves animation and animals, so let's talk about it. For those who are new to this channel, you can skip this part, and for those who are aware, I had a coolie loach as my new OC for a few months. But screw it, this is going to be my profile from now on because I am an absolute fucking freak. Also, I do actually have a few animations planned for this channel, but it takes so much time, so I figured I could do reviews of animated films in waiting and maybe other films too, since this is a channel about animations after all, and my Smurfs video did really well. Before diving in, I'll give a bit of context. My experience with Pixar for the past 5 years ever since Soul has been a bumpy ride in terms of my enjoyment and how I feel about the movies on a quality level. Soul to me was the last really great Pixar movie that felt like classic Pixar. Luca and Turning Red were fine, perfectly enjoyable. Lightyear was mediocre, it was bottom tier Pixar for me. Inside Out 2 was really good, but it didn't feel like classic Pixar to me. The most significant thing I remember in relation to that movie was honestly just the anxiety meme. I haven't seen Elemental or Elio yet, but I honestly just kind of don't care. And maybe there is ignorance on my part, but I just don't feel hooked by recent Pixar movies, which is kind of a shame because they used to be at the top of their game in terms of consistent quality output. Hoppers did hook me though, plus I like beavers.
Это бобер, встань, Саша! Ты чё, блядь, какая хуйня, блядь!
So, how was Hoppers? It was good, like really good. It's the most fun I've had with a Pixar original film in a while. Now, full transparency, when the first teaser for this film came out, it didn't exactly excite me, namely because of the Avatar line, and the overall vibe of the teaser just got me thinking, oh, so it's just another animated movie with cute talking animals but from Pixar. Okay. But as time went on and more trailers and clips of the movie came out, I don't know, it kinda won me over. And I also found out that the director is Daniel Chong, the guy behind We Bare Bears, a show that I occasionally watched back in my childhood and found very charming. So I said, you know, there might be some charm to this. And I'm glad I watched it because I had such a great time with Hoppers. The movie is centered around a 19-year-old environment activist named Mabel. She had a very close relationship with her grandmother, who is actually the person that made her love and appreciate nature. She is definitely pretty abrasive. She's got a bit of a manic personality when it comes to her fixations on the environment, and she's got beef with the mayor Jerry, who isn't exactly the bad guy. Like, he wants to destroy this dam because the animals no longer reside there so he can build a highway. Also, he's basically just John Hamm but animated. Mabel can easily be a very annoying character, and she probably is to some people, but surprisingly, I had no problems with the character. It helps that Piper Curda did a really good job voicing her. Mabel has her heart in the right place, and the frustrating feeling that no one wants to support her is something that can be relatable to a lot of people. But also sometimes she goes too far, which results in consequences that could be harmful to both parties, and I like that. So anyway, she tries this technology that transfers her mind into a robotic beaver. She goes out into nature and befriends the society of animals and especially the ruler there, King George. And she starts off an animal revolution against the humans that didn't go as planned, and chaos ensues from there on out. I'm gonna say this right away. This movie is so f***ing cute, man. I'm gonna start with the animation, and the backgrounds, the landscapes of nature are beautiful, breathtaking. Again, it's Pixar, so there's no surprise there. When it comes to things like flora, they've reached a point where it looks photorealistic. And the characters, I like them. They are cute, the animals are adorable and look very squishy, which I'm sure is the intent given this is the guy who made We Bare Bears. Even the human characters I thought looked pretty good. And I know this is where people will bring up the bean mouth art style. Let's unpack that one actually. Bean mouth, or the color art style, is a common criticism given to simplistic characters from shows like Steven Universe and other recent cartoons, in this case recent original Pixar movies. But here's the thing though, when people bring up bean mouth, oftentimes it's not just to complain about a character having a mouth that's shaped like a bean during most of their facial expressions. It's more so that their designs feel like blobs, where their faces mostly consist of very round shapes and sometimes their entire bodies as well. I do actually agree with that criticism, as I don't like that particular style of character design, and I think the recent Pixar output such as Luca, Turning Red, Elio, Win or Lose all suffer from that. It feels like the human characters just came from Wallace and Gromit, but that's Artman's brand and it works better in claymation. Except You don't see that complaints brought up, or at least very little, with The Bad Guys or Studio Ghibli films or We Bare Bears, because their human designs, while simple, consist of different shapes that are slightly closer to actual human anatomy but still stylized like a cartoon, so they're appealing to look at. Their mouths just happen to be shaped like beans, such as the case with Hoppers. And it's not something that you need to be like a great artist or have a super eye to notice. And this is not to shame on any artist that worked on those previous movies, but when you look at the human characters in Hoppers, there is a difference. And it's like if the characters from We Bare Bears were just 3D animated. I think all 5 of these human characters look solid. I still like that Mayor Jerry is just John Hamm drawn by Daniel Chong. The only small nitpick I would have is with Mabel, and I think the design itself is good. The only thing is, she doesn't look 19. I thought she was like a 14-year-old prior to the movie. One of my pet peeves is that a character does not look like their age at all, in a way that would ask so much suspension of my disbelief. Like how in anime, they would have a character that looks like a 30-year-old grown-ass woman, only for them to say, oh, she's 15 by the way. That's always been weird to me, but whatever. I had some mixed feelings when I first saw how the animals looked in the first teaser, but when I watched the movie, it just works. The animals are adorable, they look like plushies, and you just see Daniel Chong's style and fingerprints all throughout with the animals. I'm willing to bet the lizard memes wouldn't have happened if Tom the Lizard had a different design. So again, there is nuance here to the animation and the art style that goes just beyond bean mouth, and hopefully some can see that instead of saying, you know, brain dead stupid shit like this. If the art style is still personally unappealing to you, then that's understandable, everyone got their taste. I already gave a plot synopsis kind of at the start, so I'm not going to dive too much into the story, but I'll say this. This is probably one of the most batshit crazy Pixar movies. The first half was, you know, cute, and I was thinking that this is still a typical animated movie about talking animals, but at least I was vibing with the movie. But then things shift gears in the second half, and things happen that I don't normally expect in a Pixar movie. There are some pretty wild moments that took me by surprise, especially in the last 20 minutes where shit just goes bonkers. And I was honestly having a blast. I recall reading a headline a while back that says some of the themes about environmentalism has been toned down, but having seen the film, I didn't have the feeling that it felt neutered. So I'm glad Daniel Chong and writer Jesse Andrews got to show the story they wanted to tell in its glory. I'm no environment activist by any means, but I love animals and nature. So seeing a film like this coming out that's very pro-environmentalism in a reality where, let's face it, more and more species are just going extinct, is nothing but a positive to me. And it's being an actual good and entertaining movie at the same time, so you can actually have 2 cakes and eat it. I also kinda appreciate that the movie didn't make the mayor just a black and white character, which is what I expected at first. There is more nuance to his character and his reasoning. As I'm recording this, I just learned that Twitter wants to f this guy, and I don't really... I mean, it's John Hamm. Have your fun, ladies. Daniel Chong knows about it too, so that's kind of funny. Now, the movie does have a clear villain, but I'll talk about him later. King George is the best character in the movie. I love this cute little fat ass. His friendship with Mabel was very sweet throughout the film, and I was invested the entire time. His character embodies empathy, and there's some lessons about trust that, at first, I was worried it was gonna be executed terribly like Raya and the Last Dragon, but thankfully it's not that at all. Bobby Moynihan does a great job voicing King George, and I feel like he's gonna become one of those fan favorite characters because he's just so sweet. You also got another beaver, a bear, and the meme lizard guy. This beaver, I think his name was Loaf. Sounds like he was stoned and high on f***ing drugs the whole time. It was pretty funny. The scientists were fun characters, but we don't spend a lot of time with them. The movie essentially just needs them so that it can kick Mabel's plot forward and explain how the hopping technology works. Okay, time to talk about the main villain of the movie. He only really shines at the end of the film, but he was a really fun villain, and Dave Franco seems like he had a blast voicing him. His voice performance was awesome. At some point, he literally starts crawling like a character that came straight from The Ring. I don't know, man, I dug it. I also forgot to mention that I like the stylistic choice of the animals having beady eyes when it's from the perspective of the humans and it's Daniel Chong doing the animal voices. Which brings me to the humor, and this is one of the more slightly mixed aspects I have about the movie. Despite the humor having some pretty big misses, like that one scene where the animals just start screaming in unison and I was just rolling my eyes along with some other cheap jokes that's clearly meant for younger kids.
Ugh, there's just this noise. It sounds like,
Pussy!
If my Smurfs video is anything to go by, you guys know I hate that shit.
What the Smurf?
Here here's a nice piece of shit.
Other than that though, the rest of the humor surprisingly landed for me, and that went against my expectations because all of the marketing previous to me watching this movie had me thinking that the humor was going to be f***ing obnoxious. And I still see people calling this movie's humor as nothing but screaming, being loud and obnoxious as possible, but I can honestly tell you that I only recall 3 or at most 4 instances where the joke is just that. The rest is visual gags, curveball jokes, and even some dark humor there that got a good chuckle out of me. Funny thing is, and this is going to be very random, none of the jokes in this movie annoyed me as much as that one joke in the Animaniacs reboot where it's also an episode about the environment, which is fitting. At one point the Warner siblings start talking about climate change and they had the caption "preachy ending warning", and at first I was like, that's funny. And then they go on for another 10 seconds. And then they went on for another 30 seconds. And then they went for almost a whole f***ing minute, and at that point it's just alright, I get it! Anyway, I think this is genuinely a good comeback for Pixar. Is it a modern classic Pixar? No. Is it as good as Soul? Neither. It doesn't even exactly feel like a Pixar film, but does it really have to? As long as it's still really good, dare I say great. I think there will be a lot of comparisons made between this and The Wild Robot. It's also amusing that The Wild Robot feels more like Pixar while Hoppers feels more like DreamWorks. But these two movies go for very different things, and they excel in their own respective goals. It also helps that, unlike the unfortunate production of Ilio, Hoppers didn't feel gutted or had its identity changed. It's a Daniel Chong's film, and it's good, and I think it's refreshing for Pixar, and I would like to see more swings like this in the future. I'm glad this movie is not afraid to be weird and embrace it, which really makes the movie stand out from the Pixar filmography. Whenever I go into a Pixar movie, there is a certain expectation to how it will play out, especially in the third act of the movie, like some very heartfelt moments that tug at your heartstrings and how it wraps up emotionally, and that's what the movie wants you to remember most importantly. Hoppers does have those moments, but that's not the movie's main goals. It goes for an unhinged third act. It takes some wild directions that made the movie much more unpredictable, and that is genuinely so refreshing for a Pixar movie. There are lines, there are small moments in the movie that have some great payoffs later in the third act, and every time one insane thing happens, it moves to another insane thing, and it just kept me locked in the entire time. Yes, I would like another Pixar film that is as great as the Pixar classics, but at the same time, I fully support more Pixar films that feel this bold. So yeah, I really enjoyed Hoppers. I highly recommend you guys to check it out and give it a chance. This is a passion project with artists who had their hearts in the craft, and they managed to deliver a really good movie at that. A really good original animated movie that has the biggest opening for a Pixar original since Coco. That is amazing to see. Most people seem to love it. See you guys next video. Beavers are cool.